Welcome to the Hundredfold Journey. We help people step out of religious bondage and into true abundance. We invite you to embark on a journey, a spiritual journey called the Hundredfold. At a Hundredfold, we are a group of people developing new thoughts, habits, and beliefs to understand our true identity, to live our life purpose and experience the abundant life just the way Jesus did. Our mission is to provide support, encouragement, and resources to help you on your journey. The life you are meant to live is closer than you think. The journey is the destination, and your journey starts now. Good morning, Doug here from the Hundredfold Journey. Thanks again for joining us on this Grace Awakening Network program. We're embarking on a journey with you, coming alongside of you to help us to know our true identity, live our life purpose, and experience true abundance. Because a Hundredfold is about a group of people who are looking to find their true identity, and by doing so, finding God's true identity. So thanks for joining us this morning. We are in a series called I Am the Dwelling Place of God. We're looking at the Old Testament tabernacle. This is the tent that traveled through the wilderness with the Israelites through the 40 years in the desert. And the tabernacle is a perfect representation of who we are, because just like that tabernacle, we are God's temple and God's Spirit lives within us. And then John 17, Jesus stated, I have given them the glory you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. So just like this tabernacle, this was the dwelling place of God. This represents us. So each week we've been going through each of the different articles of furniture, and there happens to be 7 of them. And today we get the pleasure, the excitement of going into the Holy of Holies. This is the most holy place on the planet of Earth. And we're entering through the veil, and what we're going to see is the first piece of furniture in there, which is the Ark of the Covenant. And again, this is a perfect reflection of who we are. As I've been going through each week, going through the different pieces of furniture, they also correlate perfectly with the chakra body, which is the different energy cells that are within our body. And right now, again, we're going to the Ark of the Covenant, which is the third eye, which happens to be right between the eyebrows. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And I'm super excited because we got some good stuff. Here is what I call the Amazing Sevens. And as we talk through the different furniture and the chakras, what is amazing is the alignment that this has, what I call the Amazing Sevens. As Genesis 1:1, there were 7 words within that opening statement in Genesis 1:1. And the one we're looking at is the word and, which is kind of a strange, right? Beginning created gods, hyphen, which is Christ, heaven and earth. So the and connects earth and heaven, which again is the 7 words of Genesis 1:1, which represents the Ark of the Covenant, which represents the third eye, which represents kind of a dark blue color, awareness and light. So we're going to be looking at this connector and what that connector represents. So let's get into the third eye. The third eye is the chakra, which again is right in our forehead. It's where the brain, eyes, ears, nose, pineal gland, and the center of intuition. This chakra is known as the brow chakra or third eye center. It is related to the act of seeing both physically and intuitively. And in fact, the word there, it could also be spiritually, physical and spiritual. It awakens our understanding and allows us to see clearly and have healthy perspective on life. With a Christ-centered vision, we see the blessings in everything and everybody. We freely receive grace and begin to freely extend grace to others. When this chakra is open, we begin to have an eternal perspective, right? Not a temporary, but it's eternal. The things that used to seem like big problems become smaller. As we begin to open up to our true identity, everything else becomes smaller and burns off of our lives. So this is a very powerful chakra energy center. When it's blocked, we have poor judgment, lacks focus, poor imagination, can't see beyond the physical. When it's balanced, we're imaginative, intuitive, clear thoughts and vision, and sees beyond the physical. But if it's overactive, actually there's nightmares, delusions, hallucinations, and obsessive, compulsive behavior. And again, if it's out of balance, you'll have headaches, hearing problems, vision problems, insomnia, sinus issues, etc., etc. So this is the third eye chakra, and it is, again, it's opening our eyes so that we can see more from the physical, more from the spiritual rather than the physical. Here is where we find the building of the ark, and it's found in Exodus 25. Have people make an ark of acacia wood, overlay the inside and outside with pure gold. And as we've discovered in each of these pieces of furniture from these studies that we've been doing, we're finding that a lot of these are wood overladen with gold, and wood represents man, gold represents God. So it's man overlaid with God. So, and this one is inside and out with pure gold. And then there's rings that are attached, and then there's poles that carry it. And interestingly enough, these carrying poles must stay inside the rings, never to remove them. So that means it's easily transported. And those poles can represent, if you will, our legs, which is a moving arc, right? It's an arc that is constantly moving, or at least ready to move. When the ark is finished, place it inside of it the stone tablets inscribed with terms of the covenant which I will give you. And then additional information is found in Hebrews. So what was inside of this ark, and in reality, it's like a chest, right? It's a container. Inside the ark were a gold jar containing manna, Aaron's staff that sprouted leaves, and the stone tablets of the covenant. So there were three articles in there inside the ark, which was inside the Holy of Holies. Here is an example of where it's located in regards to that tabernacle. And again, we've been going through each one of these articles, but as we move right to left, uh, we'll notice that inside the Holy of Holies, so there were three sections to this. There's the outer court, the inner court, which is called the holy place, and then the third place, which is where we're at now, which is the Holy of Holies. And that's where this resides. And notice the picture that this is kind of depicting. It's actually a cross, right? The center with the two sides, which is another picture of what this is symbolizing for us, which is the cross. And everything that the cross did and represented can be found here. So again, the third eye, light and awareness is what that represents. Here's another view, right? So the three sections, and we're going through the veil. And what's amazing is here's the veil that was separating the holy place, which is where the altar of incense, the menorah, and the table of showbread, and this veil separated that court from this one. And this is the same veil that when Jesus was nailed to the cross and died, he yielded his spirit, and that veil was split. Then behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. So whoosh, toward, and then all of a sudden the Holy of Holies which was a place that was never to be entered except once a year by the high priest, has now been opened for all to see, which is like it's a game changer, right? And Jesus declared, "It is finished." But this veil has now been opened because of what Christ did. It revealed to us that veil that covered our eyes was removed. And now the Holy of Holies, which is here, has been revealed. Again, another picture. All right. So what I found was rather interesting is that there were two gentlemen that basically built all of the tabernacle and all these pieces of furniture. There was a foreman and there was an assistant. And the foreman was filled with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, and with all kinds of skills. And his name was, sorry, Bezalel, and then his helper was this guy, Ashimamach. And I thought it was interesting. I went ahead and as I've been doing, kind of doing some study in the Hebrew letters, because each letter depicts a, a statement. So the foreman, his name in Hebrew is in the shadow of, or the protection of God. And then his father happened to be light. So Bethalel, who is a representation of Christ, right? Because he's the one that is building the temple. The Spirit of God with wisdom and understanding and knowledge was on top of him. It was a shadow, but that shadow was coming from his father, which is Uri, which is my light. So Uri being the father of Betelzel, sorry, this foreman, um, that's the correlation. I thought that was fascinating that the dad, the father, was the light and he was in the shadow of, just like Jesus was in the shadow of his father. And then the other guy, the assistant, his name is my father's tent. And then his father was my brother's help. And in a sense, this could be us, a representation of us, because we are assisting Christ who is in us, and we are the Father's tent, just like this tabernacle that we're talking about. We're the dwelling place of God. It's my tent, and the Father is within me, and then I'm helping, like my older brother, Christ. I'm helping him, I'm supporting him to build and create this temple. So again, just amazing correlation of how this all works. Hoping you're tracking with me on that one. All right. So what's inside the Ark of the Covenant? So we have the tablets, and those tablets represent the law, right? The Ten Commandments. Those were in there. But those Ten Commandments were fulfilled perfectly by Christ. Matthew 5, Jesus says, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law. I have not come to abolish, but to fulfill them." And then Jesus revealed our righteousness to all believers. So the law condemns, but because Jesus fulfilled that and Christ did away with those Ten Commandments, now we have a new law within us, and that's the law of love. Um, but again, Romans 8 says, "For what the law was powerless to do because it was weakened by the flesh, God did by sending his own Son, so that the righteous requirement of the law may be fully met in us." Right? So there's no doing. There's nothing we need to do. It's just rest in knowing that these commandments are fulfilled. There's nothing we need to do. The other thing that was in there was the pot of manna, and the symbolism there is represents God's provision of physical sustenance. And then the Christ fulfillment was Jesus said, "I am the bread of life." And we covered that in our last series, which were the seven I am statements. But I am the bread of life. So he's basically declaring, Christ is declaring that Your ancestors ate manna in the wilderness and they died. You eat of me and you will not die, which is pretty amazing. So that was in the Ark of the Covenant. And then the last thing that was in there was the rod that budded. So basically, what happened here is that Aaron, who was one of the leaders of the 12 tribes, they were deciding who were going to be the priests. So out of the 12 tribes, Aaron and all the other 11 put their rods inside the Holy of Holies, and whichever one came back to life would be the one that was chosen to become the priests of God. And Aaron's rod budded. And I love this picture here because there's no roots, there's no nothing. And then all of a sudden it grew out of nothing. Um, so Christ's fulfillment, Christ is our high priest. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. The budding rod symbolizes resurrection and new life fulfilled in Jesus's resurrection. And he said, he declared, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me, though who believes in me will live even though they die. So we are the resurrection, right? So we have that hidden manna within us. We have the resurrection within us, and the 10 Commandments were fulfilled. There's nothing we need to do. So those were the three items inside the ark, and they are also inside of us because we are the Ark of the Covenant. We are God's dwelling place. And just a quick review. The word ark actually is used multiple times in the Bible. The Noah's Ark is the same word, and the basket that Moses was put in, the river, um, was also called an ark. And then, of course, we have the Ark of the Covenant. And then, even though the Bible doesn't describe Jesus's tomb as an ark, but it was a representation of death because each one of these represents something that had died, right? The old world, Moses was supposed to die, but put him in a river, the Ark of the Covenant, and then of course the tomb that Jesus was laid. But then all of that was resurrected into a new life, and that veil has been broken, right? So these all move from death to life, right? Just like the ark. The people that were there lived, Moses lived, Jesus lived, we live. All right, so the Holy of Holies. Now let's talk about this location. It was the innermost and most sacred part of the tabernacle, and later the temple in Jerusalem. It symbolized God's unique presence among his people and served as an earthly meeting place between God and Israel. And Israel, by the way, means Prince of God. What the Holy of Holies represented, it represented God's presence. The Holy of Holies was the dwelling place of God's glory, often referred to as the manifest presence of God. It was considered the earthly representation of the heavenly throne room of God. So in a sense, it was God's throne room. It's where he dwelt, where his glory dwelt. It also represented divine holiness. The space emphasized God's absolute holiness and separateness from sin. The reason for that veil was he did not want, again, it was a symbol, the representation of man's thought about himself, which we call sin, which is distorted identity, did not want that to come into his presence. So it was covered by a veil. And only the high priest could enter, and only once a year. And that was on the Day of Atonement. It represented the covenantal relationship. The Holy of Holies housed the Ark of the Covenant, which contained the tablets, the law, the pot of manna, and Aaron's rod. These items symbolize God's covenant, provision, and leadership. And then access to God. It represented access to God, right? Because God was there. He was behind the veil. but access to him. It highlighted the limited access humanity had to God under the old covenant, requiring strict rituals and meditation by the high priest. This foreshadowed the greater access that would come through Christ in the New Testament, and that's where we're at today. All right. What God did from the Holy of Holies. So this one is what it represented. Now, what did God do? He revealed his presence. God's presence would appear above the mercy seat, which is the lid of the Ark of the Covenant, between the two cherubs, as described in Exodus 25. And then he says, that's where I'm going to meet you, between the two cherubs, which is right here. This is where God is meeting us. Communicated with his people. From the Holy of Holies, God gave guidance and commands to Moses and the high priest, signifying his willingness to dwell among and lead his people. So this is where he communicated. So he revealed his presence and he communicated with his people. And then accepted atonement. This is Yom Kippur, which is once a year, which is where the high priest would go through the veil. He would sprinkle blood from the sacrificial animal on the mercy seat to atone for the sins of the nation. This act symbolized God's forgiveness and reconciliation with his people. And then he demonstrated his glory. The Holy of Holies was veiled by a thick curtain to shield people from the overwhelming holiness and glory of God, as direct contact with God's presence would result in death. At least that's what they said in Exodus 33. All right. So we go from what God did to now the New Testament fulfillment. The Holy of Holies finds its ultimate fulfillment in the work of Jesus Christ. Jesus, as the high priest, he entered the heavenly Holy of Holies, showing us the way, right? So he revealed Christ is our example. He's our older brother that said, here's the way, follow me. I'm the example of how to live. And he's our example and representation of who we are. So tearing of the veil at Jesus's crucifixion, the veil separating the Holy of Holies was torn, symbolizing that we now have direct access to God through Christ. How amazing is that? So that veil that separated, that no one could go through, that's now wide open. And in Acts chapter 2, it says, my spirit has been poured out on all flesh. There is no separation. So here again is the temple. So what we're talking about is this Holy of Holies, which represents our mind, our thoughts, and it's part of us. And when we think about it, this is the dwelling place of God. This is where he dwells. This is the Ark of the Covenant. It's our mind, it's our thoughts. And when we wrap our head, when we wrap our mind and our thoughts around that, it's pretty amazing. Because where else is God? I mean, God is everywhere, right? Don't get me wrong. But specifically, he's right here in the Holy of Holies, which is right here in my mind. So with the chakras, this also represents exactly where that energy point is with the chakras. All right, so this is the dwelling place of God. So back to my statement, we are the Ark of the Covenant. We are the living, breathing, mobile, Holy of Holies, right? This is the dwelling place of God. And mobile, remember those poles that had to be continually there, right? That's why I use the word mobile there, because we're constantly moving, right? God is moving with me, through me, as me to represent himself here on earth. And I'm not saying I'm the God that needed me. Sorry, my dog. But it does, I am a part of him, right? He has entered into me. So here's some things that God has done for us. We have the mind of Christ. We are the body of Christ. We are his dwelling place. We are heaven on earth. We have God's Spirit. We have the glory of God. We are one with Christ. We are perfect, holy, and blameless. So this is the Ark of the Covenant, and this is everything that Christ has done for us to reveal our true identity. So if you want to ask the question, what is my true identity? As I always talk about, at the beginning of this program, our true identity is this: the body, the mind, the dwelling place. We are heaven on earth. We're that connector, right? We're that connector between heaven and earth. So um, this is our true identity. So I really like this picture. And maybe Linda, who's on the line, what do you see when you look at this picture?
Um, it looks like a person that has become more alive,
Yes,
expanded, and all the elements of God Himself being awakened in that person.
yes, yes. Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping to do with the hundredfold journey, is to awaken people to their true identity and who they are, and that they are all of this, right? The mind, the body, the dwelling place. God's spirit is within us. There is no separation, even though religion would tell us that. It's not the case. So we are the Ark of the Covenant. We are that connector, right? The and in creation, right? Heaven and earth. So we are that connector where God is bringing heaven down, just like he did once a year in the Old Testament in that tabernacle system. He's now dwelling within us all. And we're that connector, connecting God with earth, spiritual and physical. All right. So that's it for this morning. Really appreciate you joining us. Next week, we're going to talk about the mercy seat. Please reach out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our YouTube channel. And then, of course, on our website, there's the QR code that you can go to. You can reach out to me at thehundredfoldjourney.com or email at doug@thehundredfoldjourney. So thanks for joining us again this morning, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.